The crowd roared like a wild storm, their voices merging into a deafening wave of excitement. Thousands of alien spectators filled the massive arena, their glowing eyes fixed on the pit below. The Sci-Fi, the ruthless conquerors of many worlds, had gathered for another one of their brutal games. At the center of the arena, a massive creature stood in a steel cage. It was the war beast, a terrifying predator, bred and trained to kill without mercy. Its body was covered in thick, dark scales, its claws sharp enough to tear through metal. Its glowing red eyes scanned the area, hungry for blood. It had never lost a fight. Above the pit, a group of Sci-Fi warriors stood on a high platform, their armor gleaming under the bright lights. One of them, a tall figure with deep blue skin and a twisted grin, raised his clawed hand. He was Warlord Cyrek, the commander of this sector. His voice boomed across the arena. "Today, we show the galaxy what happens to those who dare resist us," he declared. "Behold, the last survivor of Earth's rebellion." A metal door slid open, and a small figure was pushed into the pit. Gasps and whispers spread through the crowd. It was a child, a human child. The boy looked no older than 8 or 9 years. He had short brown hair, pale skin, and wore torn clothes covered in dust. His arms were thin, his body weak from hunger. But his eyes were not filled with fear. He looked at the war beast with a calm expression, as if he had seen worse things before. The crowd erupted into laughter. "Pathetic," one alien shouted. "This is no challenge," another jeered. "The beast will swallow him whole." Warlord Cyrek smirked. "Let the hunt begin." A loud horn echoed through the arena, and the cage holding the war beast opened. The giant creature stepped out, its massive form casting a shadow over the small boy. It let out a low growl, sniffing the air, sensing its prey. The boy remained still. He did not run. The war beast lunged. A flash of movement, sharp claws striking toward the boy's head. The crowd leaned forward, ready to see the child torn apart. But something unexpected happened. The moment the beast's eyes met the boy's, it stopped. Its deadly claws halted inches from his face. Its breathing slowed. Its red eyes flickered with confusion. The crowd fell silent. The beast tilted its head, staring at the boy. The boy stared back, unblinking. Slowly, the war beast let out a deep, rumbling growl, not of anger, but of something else. Recognition. The Sci-Fi warlords exchanged confused glances. "What is happening?" Warlord Cyrek growled. "Why isn't it attacking?" A scientist beside him, dressed in a flowing dark robe, frantically tapped on a glowing screen. "Impossible. It's resisting the neural implants." Down in the pit, the war beast slowly lowered itself. Instead of attacking, it took a step back. Then, in an act that shocked every being in the arena, it bowed its massive head before the boy. Gasps filled the air. The laughter had died. Warlord Cyrek's face twisted in rage. "This is a disgrace. The beast must obey." Guards rushed to the control panels, sending electrical pulses through the war beast's implanted chip. The creature let out a pained roar, but did not move against the boy. Instead, it growled at the Sci-Fi handlers. It was no longer their weapon. The boy, still silent, reached out a small hand and placed it gently on the beast's snout. The arena, once filled with noise, now held only a stunned silence. The war beast, feared across the galaxy, rumbled softly in response. It had made its choice, and the Sci-Fi knew, for the first time, that something was very, very wrong. A heavy silence fell over the arena. The Sci-Fi, who had moments ago been roaring with excitement, now watched in stunned disbelief. Never before had the war beast refused to attack. Never before had it bowed to anyone, especially not to a weak, defenseless human child. On the high platform above the pit, Warlord Cyrek clenched his fists, his sharp teeth grinding taut. Either His glowing red eyes burned with rage. "What is this nonsense?" he growled. "Why does the beast hesitate?" The scientist beside him, his pale blue skin now a shade paler, frantically tapped on his glowing control panel. "It makes no sense, Warlord. The neural implant is active. The beast should be obeying commands." Yet, down in the pit, the war beast remained still, its massive body crouched low before the human child. The boy, Eli Carter, stood with one hand resting gently on the creature's snout. His face was calm, his eyes locked onto the beast's glowing red orbs. The crowd of aliens, who had been expecting a quick and brutal show, began murmuring among themselves. Confusion spread like wildfire. Some of them had seen thousands of executions in this very arena, but never had a creature refuse to kill. "This is a trick," one alien hissed. "The human has done something." Another whispered, "Impossible." A third muttered, "The war beast has no mind of its own. It only obeys." Warlord Cyrek slammed his fist onto the railing. "Enough. If the beast will not obey, we will make it obey." He turned to the nearest guard. "Send the shock command. Full power." The scientist hesitated. "Warlord, if we push it too far, the beast cold." "Do it," Cyrek bellowed. The scientist pressed the command. A powerful electric shock surged through the war beast's body. It let out a deafening roar of pain, its muscles locking up as the energy coursed through its nerves. The crowd flinched at the sound. The boy, Eli, did not move. His small hand remained on the beast's snout, his expression unchanged. The war beast trembled, its body shaking violently. But still, it did not attack. Instead, something even more shocking happened. The beast turned its gaze upward, toward the platform where the Excelfar warlord stood. It let out a low, rumbling growl, its glowing red eyes narrowing. The Excelfar warriors felt something they were not used to. Fear. "No, it can't be," the scientist whispered in horror. "The beast, it's resisting us." The war beast rose to its full height, towering over the child. Its long tail slammed into the ground, sending cracks through the arena floor. Then, with a single swipe of its massive claws, it tore the implanted shock device from its own neck. Sparks flew as the broken machinery fell to the ground. The Excelfar warlords froze. The war beast had broken free. The arena erupted into chaos. Guards scrambled to activate the containment barriers, but it was too late. The beast, no longer under control, let out an earth-shaking roar. Its eyes no longer glowed with the artificial red of the Excelfar's technology. Now, they burned with something else. Rage. The crowd, sensing danger, began pushing and shoving toward the exits. Panic spread as the mighty creature turned its gaze toward the Excelfar overlords. Warlord Cyrek took a step back, his confident smirk replaced with fury and desperation. "This is unacceptable," he roared. "Kill the human. Destroy the beast." Zelfar soldiers, armed with energy rifles, stormed the arena floor. They raised their weapons, aiming at the child. Eli Carter finally moved. He stepped forward, placing himself between the war beast and the incoming soldiers. His small frame stood defiantly in front of the towering creature, as if protecting it. The Excelfar laughed. "Foolish human child," one of them sneered. "Do you think you can stop us?" Eli didn't answer. He didn't need to. The war beast did. With a single leap, the beast pounced on the closest group of soldiers, its claws slashing through their weapons like paper. It moved with deadly precision, dodging blaster fire and striking with unmatched speed. The Excelfar warriors who had once controlled it now found themselves as its prey. The arena turned into a battlefield. The audience, desperate to escape, trampled over one another. The once great spectacle had become a scene of terror. The war beast, once a tool of destruction for the Excelfar, was now their worst nightmare. Eli stood still, watching as the creature defended itself, not with blind rage, but with calculated purpose. Warlord Cyrek, now pale with fury, pointed a clawed finger at the child. "This human is dangerous. Seize him." Several guards rushed toward Eli. The war beast roared and positioned itself in front of the boy. It would not let them take him. One of the soldiers hesitated. "Warlord, what if the beast has chosen him?" Cyrek's eyes burned with hatred. "Nonsense. Beasts do not choose. They obey." But deep in his heart, the warlord knew he was wrong. And for the first time in centuries, the Excelthar saw something they had never believed possible. A human standing side by side with one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. The tide of power was shifting. And the Excelthar had no idea what was coming next. The arena was no longer a place of entertainment. It had become a battlefield. Screams of fear and panic echoed through the massive Colosseum as the once cheering audience now fought to escape. The Excelthar warlords, once proud and arrogant, now stood frozen on their platform, their glowing red eyes wide with disbelief. In the center of the chaos, a human child stood unshaken. Eli Carter, small and fragile in appearance, was untouched by the destruction around him. The war beast, a monster feared across the galaxy, stood at his side like a guardian, its massive body tense, its deadly claws ready to strike. The Excelthar soldiers hesitated. This wasn't supposed to happen. The war beast was meant to kill the child, not protect him. The idea of a beast forming a bond with a human was impossible, unthinkable. And yet here it was. One of the soldiers broke the silence, gripping his energy rifle tightly. "Orders, Warlord," he asked, his voice shaking. Warlord Cyrek's face twisted with fury. He had never known fear, but now, something about this child and the beast beside him sent a shiver down his spine. He clenched his fists, refusing to accept this absurd reality. "This is a trick," Cyrek spat. "No human could control a war beast. Kill them both." The soldiers raised their weapons. Eli's eyes darkened. His small hand clenched into a fist. The war beast moved. In a blur of motion, it leaped forward, covering the distance between them in a heartbeat. The Excelthar soldiers barely had time to react before the creature's powerful tail swung through the air, sending them flying like ragdolls. Weapons clattered to the ground. The beast roared, shaking the very foundation of the arena. More guards rushed in. They fired their rifles, blue energy bolts flashing toward the child. The war beast shielded Eli with its massive body. The energy blast struck its thick scales, leaving only minor burns. With a deep guttural growl, the creature charged. It swiped its claws, sending shockwaves through the ground. Soldiers scrambled, their attacks useless against the beast's overwhelming power. Warlord Cyrek gritted his teeth, his fury reaching its peak. "Enough," he roared. He turned to his personal guard, elite warriors, stronger and faster than the average soldier. "Take the child. I don't care what it takes." The elite warriors leaped into the pit, their movements swift and precise. Unlike the others, they did not hesitate. They surrounded Eli, their glowing red weapons humming with deadly energy. Eli glanced around, his sharp mind quickly assessing the situation. He was cornered. Even the war beast, as powerful as it was, could not protect him from all sides at once. One of the warriors lunged. But then something strange happened. The war beast let out a deep, echoing growl, not a sound of anger, but of command. The ground trembled. From the dark tunnels beneath the arena, more creatures emerged. They were smaller than the war beast, but still terrifying. Sharp fangs, glowing eyes, deadly claws. These were the lesser war creatures, bred by the Excelthar for battle. But instead of attacking the war beast, they obeyed it. Gasps filled the arena. The war beast had done the impossible. It had taken control. The lesser creatures growled, their eyes locked onto the Excelthar warriors. Then, without warning, they attacked. The elite guards, trained to fight monsters, suddenly found themselves overwhelmed. The creatures moved as one, striking with perfect coordination. The Selfar warriors screamed as they were dragged down, their weapons useless against the fury of the beasts. Sirik took a step back, his confidence finally cracking. "How is this happening?" he demanded. The scientist beside him, his face pale with fear, stammered, "It shouldn't be possible. The war beast, it has overridden our control systems. It's leading the others." Sirik's claws dug into the railing. No beast should have that kind of intelligence. The scientist swallowed hard. No beast does, but what if it's not just the beast? What if it's the human? Sirik froze. His eyes snapped back to the boy in the arena. Eli Carter. The child stood in the center of the battlefield, his small form untouched by the carnage around him. His eyes held no fear. He had done something no Selfar had ever seen before. He had connected with the war beast, not through technology, not through force, but through something deeper. Something primal. Sirik clenched his fists. This human must be destroyed. He turned to his guards. "Send in the airstrike. Level the arena." The command was sent. High above, Selfar warships prepared to fire. The sky darkened as massive cannons powered up, ready to reduce everything below to ash. Eli looked up. He saw the bright glow of energy gathering above. He knew what was coming. He placed a hand on the war beast's snout. The creature turned to him, its deep eyes filled with understanding. No words were spoken, none were needed. The war beast let out a final powerful roar. The lesser creatures responded in unison, their voices joining together in a symphony of defiance. And then, as the first blast rained down from above, they vanished. A blinding flash of energy engulfed the pit. Smoke and fire erupted into the air. The Selfar warlords watched in satisfaction. Nothing could have survived that. Nothing. But as the dust began to clear, a new legend was about to be born. The arena was in ruins. Smoke and dust filled the air, covering the battlefield in a thick, choking fog. Fires burned in the shattered remains of the Colosseum, their orange glow flickering against the darkened sky. Warlord Sirik stood at the edge of the high platform, his red eyes scanning the destruction below. His sharp claws gripped the railing, his body tense with anticipation. Nothing could have survived that. Nothing. He smirked, his fangs gleaming. "It's over," he growled. "The beast is dead. The human is gone." But then, a sudden pulse of energy rippled through the air. It was faint at first, like the distant echo of a heartbeat. Then it grew stronger. The ground trembled beneath Sirik's feet. From the smoke and fire, a shape began to emerge. First, a pair of glowing eyes. Deep, golden eyes that burned with something ancient, something unstoppable. Then, a massive shadow stepped forward. The war beast. Gasps spread through the surviving Selfar warriors. It was impossible. The airstrike should have vaporized everything inside the arena. But the beast stood there, unharmed. And beside it, in the middle of the ruins, the human child, Eli Carter. He was covered in dust, his clothes torn, his hair messy. But he was alive. Not just alive, standing tall, his expression calm, his gaze locked onto Sirik. Something had changed. The Selfar warlord felt an unfamiliar sensation crawl up his spine. Was it fear? One of his generals stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Warlord, how did they survive?" Sirik bared his teeth. "It doesn't matter. They won't escape." He pointed a clawed finger toward the ruined pit. "Surround them. All troops, attack." The remaining Selfar soldiers hesitated. Many had already seen what the war beast could do. They had seen how it had turned the other creatures against their masters. The fear in their eyes was obvious. Eli watched them closely. He could feel it. The hesitation, the doubt. They were afraid, not just of the war beast, but of him. He didn't fully understand it himself, but deep inside, he knew something had awakened. A connection. The war beast wasn't just protecting him. It was following him. No, listening to him. It was more than just an animal, more than just a weapon. It had a mind, a heart. And now, for the first time in its life, it had a choice. Eli placed a hand on its snout. The beast's deep growl rumbled through the air. The Sci-Fi soldiers stiffened. Then Eli did something no one expected. He spoke. "Go," he said softly, his voice steady. "You don't have to fight for them anymore." The arena fell silent. The lesser war creatures, still standing among the ruins, shifted uncertainly. Their glowing eyes flickered. Their bodies tensed, waiting. Then, one by one, they turned, and they walked away. The Sci-Fi warlords watched in horror as their greatest weapons abandoned them. Creatures they had trained, tortured, and controlled for generations were now leaving without a second thought. Xeric's rage exploded. "No, you are ours. You obey us." But the creatures didn't even look back. For the first time, they were free. The war beast gave one last look at Eli, as if waiting for something. Eli met its gaze. "Go," he said again. The massive beast let out a final earth-shaking roar, one that echoed through the ruins like thunder. Then, with a powerful leap, it disappeared into the night, vanishing into the distant mountains. Eli stood alone. The Sci-Fi warlord stared at him, stunned beyond words. This child, this human, had done the impossible. He had turned their own weapons against them. He had broken their control. And he had survived. Xeric's claws trembled at his sides. "Kill him," he snarled. "Now." The soldiers hesitated. One of them, a young warrior with dark blue skin, stepped forward. His hands clenched around his rifle. He aimed it at Eli. The boy didn't flinch. The soldier's finger tightened on the trigger. But then, he stopped. He looked at Eli, really looked at him. And for the first time, he saw not an enemy, not a weak creature to be crushed, but something else. Something stronger than fear. Something even the Sci-Fi could not understand. Slowly, the soldier lowered his weapon. The others saw this. One by one, they did the same. Xeric's eyes widened in fury. "Traitors," he roared. "Do you not see what he is? He is a threat. He is a human." But that was the problem. They had seen. And now, they could never unsee it. The first crack had formed. The first doubt had taken root. The Sci-Fi empire, unchallenged for centuries, had been shaken, not by an army, not by a superweapon, but by a single human child. Eli Carter had done the impossible, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Warlord Xeric had never felt fear before. For his entire life, he had believed in the strength of the Sci-Fi empire. His kind were conquerors, warriors who ruled through power and fear. No species had ever dared to defy them. No creature had ever broken free from their control. And yet, here stood a human child, small and fragile, staring at him with calm, unshaken eyes. Around him, the once loyal war beasts had vanished, their chains of servitude shattered. Even his own soldiers, his most elite warriors, had hesitated to follow his command. Xeric's claws curled into fists. His rage burned like a firestorm. "This ends now," he growled. He raised his hand, signaling the remaining loyal warriors. "Kill him." But before the order could be followed, a new sound filled the ruined arena. A deep, distant hum. Xeric's eyes flickered upward. His anger twisted into something else. Dread. Ships. Massive silver ships descending from the sky, their engines humming with energy. Their sleek design, smooth and bright, was unmistakable. Human ships. The Terran fleet had arrived. A burst of blue light shot through the sky, slamming into the Sci-Fi warships above. Explosions erupted in the heavens, lighting up the darkness like fireworks. Human fighters darted through the chaos, faster and more precise than any Sci-Fi ship. Then the voices came. "Attention, Sci-Fi warlords. A deep, commanding voice echoed through the battlefield. "This is Admiral Richard Hayes of the Terran Alliance. You have something that belongs to us. Stand down or face the full might of humanity." Zyrek's heart pounded. This wasn't possible. Humans were supposed to be weak, inferior. And yet, here they were, challenging the Selfar Empire itself. For the first time in his life, Zyrek saw what he had refused to believe. Humans were not prey. They were a storm. And this child, Eli Carter, was the first warning of what was coming. The unbreakable will. Eli watched as the Terran fleet rained destruction upon the Selfar forces. Blue energy beams streaked across the sky, striking enemy ships with deadly accuracy. The Selfar warlords shouted desperate orders, but it was too late. The tide had turned. Yet, even in the chaos, Cyrek's glowing red eyes locked onto Eli. "You think this changes anything, human?" he snarled. "You think your kind is strong?" Eli said nothing. He simply stood his ground. Cyrek's voice dropped to a low growl. "You don't know what you've done. You've made an enemy of the Exelfar. We will not stop. We will not forgive. Your people, your entire race, will burn for this." Eli met the warlord's glare. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not a smile of arrogance, not one of victory, but a smile of understanding. "You're afraid," Eli said softly. Cyrek stiffened. "I fear nothing." Eli tilted his head slightly. "Yes, you do. You fear us. You fear that you were wrong about humans." The warlord growled, but Eli kept going. "You tried to break me. You tried to make me weak. But look around you, Cyrek. I'm still here. The war beast is free. Your army hesitated to follow you, and now my people have come." Eli took a slow step forward. "You think you're stronger than us. You think you're greater than humanity. But if that were true, then why are you losing?" Cyrek's breath caught in his throat. He had no answer, because deep down he knew. The Exelfar had always relied on their power to rule. Their war beasts, their weapons, their fear tactics. But humanity had something else. Something no empire, no warlord, no weapon could ever defeat. Willpower. The Exelfar fought because they were ordered to. Humans fought because they chose to. And that made them unstoppable. The retreat. The battle in the skies raged on. Zelfar ships fell one by one. The Terran fleet was relentless. Cyrek knew this fight was over. If he stayed, he would die. His mind raced. He could not, would not, accept this defeat. The war wasn't over. The Selfar Empire still had its strength. They would return, stronger than before. But today, he had to survive. With a final glare at Eli, Tyrek turned. "Retreat," he roared to his remaining forces. Selfar warships turned away from battle, activating their warp drives. The ground troops scrambled for the nearest transports, abandoning the arena in a desperate attempt to escape. Eli watched them go. He did not chase them. He had already won. A new beginning. As the Selfar fleet disappeared into the void, a human dropship landed in the ruined arena. The door hissed open, and a tall, armored man stepped out. Admiral Richard Hayes. His sharp eyes locked onto Eli, scanning him for injuries. Then his expression softened. "You did good, kid," Hayes said. "You held out longer than most trained soldiers would have." Eli looked up at him. "They're going to come back." The Admiral nodded. "Yeah, they will. But next time, they won't find us unprepared." Eli glanced at the sky, where the last Selfar ship had vanished into hyperspace. This was just the beginning. He wasn't just some child anymore. He was a survivor, a fighter. And when the Exelfar returned, humanity would be waiting. The silence after the battle was heavy. The Selfar fleet had retreated, but their threat still loomed over the galaxy. Eli Carter stood in the middle of the ruined arena, surrounded by debris and scorch marks from the fight. The war beast was gone, free for the first time in its life. But Eli knew this was not the end. Admiral Richard Hayes placed a firm hand on Eli's shoulder. "Come on, kid. We need to get you out of here." Eli hesitated for a moment, his eyes scanning the wreckage of the Colosseum. The place where everything had changed. He had come here as nothing more than a prisoner, a weak child thrown to die in a cruel game. But now he was something more. He had survived. And more importantly, the Excelfar knew it. The human fleet. The dropship carried Eli through the sky, moving toward the massive Terran war ship waiting in orbit. Through the window, Eli saw the true power of the human fleet. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness of space, their sleek, silver hulls reflecting the light of a distant star. Fighters sit between larger cruisers, their movements precise and coordinated. Giant carriers held entire armies inside, ready to fight at a moment's notice. The Excelfar had underestimated humanity. That was their mistake. As the ship docked inside the flagship, Eli stepped onto the metal floor of the hangar. Soldiers moved around quickly, checking weapons, repairing damaged fighters, and preparing for the next battle. Some of them paused to glance at Eli, whispers spreading through the ranks. "He's the kid who survived, the one who broke the war beasts." The Excelfar ran from him. Eli ignored the stares. He wasn't here to be a legend. He was here because he had a job to do. The meeting. Admiral Hayes led Eli through the corridors of the ship, past security checkpoints and high-tech control rooms. Finally, they arrived at a massive briefing chamber where high-ranking officers were already waiting. A holographic map of the galaxy hovered over the central table, displaying glowing red marks. Zelthar territory. A female commander, her short brown hair streaked with silver, looked up as Eli entered. "This is the boy." Hayes nodded. Eli Carter, the only human to survive the Selfar war trials, and the reason their war beasts turned against them. Murmurs spread through the room. Some of the officers looked skeptical, others curious. Eli stepped forward. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for war, but he had seen something none of them had. "You don't have much time," Eli said. His voice was calm but firm. "The Excelfar will return. And next time, they won't just bring war beasts. They'll bring everything." A younger officer scoffed. "We just crushed their attack force. They ran from us." Eli shook his head. "No, they retreated because they weren't ready. But now, they know something they didn't before." The room fell silent. Eli met their eyes, one by one. They know humans are dangerous. And the Excelfar don't just destroy threats. They erase them. Admiral Hayes folded his arms. "Then we hit them first." A deep murmur of agreement spread through the room. The idea of taking the fight to the Excelfar was bold, maybe even reckless. But if they waited, the enemy would have time to rebuild. Time to strike first was running out. The hidden weapon. A new officer spoke up, an older man with dark skin and sharp, calculating eyes. "There's one problem. We don't know where to hit them." The Selfar homeworld was hidden deep in uncharted space. No one had ever found it. Their warships attacked from the shadows, their fleets moving unpredictably. Eli frowned, thinking. Then suddenly, a memory surfaced. "The war beast," he said. The officers looked confused. Eli took a deep breath. It was never just an animal. It understood things. It knew where it came from. And before it left, I saw something in its eyes. Commander Hayes raised an eyebrow. "What?" Eli hesitated before answering. "A direction." The room went silent. It sounded impossible, but after everything that had happened, no one could deny the strange connection Eli had formed with the war beast. If it had given him a clue to where the Excelfar were hiding, it was the best lead they had. The mission. Hayes turned to his officers. "Prepare a recon fleet. We'll follow the path Eli gives us. One of the commanders hesitated. And if it's a trap? Hayes smiled grimly. Then we fight our way out. Eli clenched his fists. The XLFAR had stolen him from his home, thrown him into the arena like an animal, and expected him to die. Now he was leading the charge to their doorstep. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. The Terran fleet moved through the darkness of space, following the path Eli Carter had described. He stood on the command deck of the flagship Valiant, watching the endless void ahead. This was it, the final step in their journey. The war beast had given him a direction, and now humanity was marching straight toward the heart of the Selfar Empire. ETA to destination, Admiral Hayes asked. 5 minutes, the navigator responded. The tension in the room was thick. Every soldier, every officer, every pilot knew. This mission could decide the fate of the galaxy. Would they end the Selfar threat? Or would they be walking into a trap? The Selfar homeworld. The moment they exited hyperspace, the answer became clear. A massive planet loomed before them, covered in jagged black structures that pulsed with eerie red light. Around it, a fleet of Selfar warships lay waiting, far more than anyone had expected. Thousands of them. Contact. Enemy fleet detected. A crew member shouted. Hayes narrowed his eyes. They knew we were coming. Eli clenched his fists. Of course they did. The XLFAR weren't fools. They had lost once, and they wouldn't let it happen again. A transmission came through, the voice of Warlord Cyric booming across the command deck. Foolish humans, you dare challenge us in our own territory. This time, there will be no escape, no mercy. Eli stepped forward. You sound nervous, Cyric. The warlord's voice turned into a growl. You are nothing, child. You are an insect standing before a storm. Eli smirked. Funny. I was thinking the same about you. The transmission cut off. The battle had begun. The first strike. The Selfar fleet fired first. Streams of red energy shot through space, targeting the Terran warships. Explosions erupted as shields flickered under the assault, but the humans had come prepared. Return fire, Hayes ordered. The Valiant and its fleet unleashed a wave of blue plasma, striking the enemy ships with precise, deadly force. Zelfar vessels shattered, their formations breaking apart. Fighter squadrons launched, darting through the chaos like swarms of angry wasps. Human pilots outmaneuvered their enemies, blasting through Selfar defenses with ruthless efficiency. But the enemy had numbers, and numbers could crush even the strongest warriors. Eli's plan. Eli's heart pounded as he watched the battle unfold. This wasn't like the arena. He couldn't rely on strength alone. He had to think. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, focusing. The war beast had shown him the way here. Had it given him something else? A clue? A weakness? Then, he remembered. The war beast had avoided something. A massive, tower-like structure on the planet's surface. The control tower, Eli realized. He turned to Admiral Hayes. We have to take down that structure. Hayes glanced at the tactical map. Why? Eli's voice was firm. I don't know how, but the war beast feared it. I think it controls something. Maybe their defenses, maybe their ships. But if we destroy it, we can turn the tide. The Admiral studied Eli for a moment. Then he made his decision. All units, new priority target, take out that tower. The final assault. A squadron of bombers broke through the battle, speeding toward the surface. Zelfar fighters chased them, trying to stop the attack. Eli watched anxiously. One bomber exploded, then another. The remaining ships pushed forward, dodging enemy fire. Then, a bright flash. The tower erupted in flames, sending a shockwave across the planet. Suddenly, the Selfar fleet hesitated. Their ships drifted, their weapons faltering. The structure had been more than just a tower. It had been their central command hub. Without it, Their forces were in chaos. "This is our chance," Hayes roared. "All ships, full attack." The human fleet surged forward, cutting through the confused Xelthar forces. One by one, the enemy warships fell. Some tried to retreat, but there was nowhere left to run. Warlord Cyrek's voice returned, but this time it was filled with desperation. "This is impossible. Humans cannot." His transmission cut off as his warship exploded. The battle was over. Victory. Eli stood on the bridge, breathing heavily. It was done. The Xelthar Empire, the unstoppable force that had terrorized the galaxy, had fallen. Hayes turned to Eli, nodding. "You did good, kid." Eli shook his head. "We all did." The war beast had shown him the way. The humans had fought with everything they had. And together, they had won. But Eli knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven its strength. And now, the galaxy would never forget. The age of fear was over. The age of humanity had begun.